going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down, take a bunch of videos that tell one overarching storyline and combine them together into one big video. Today's full story video is going to be over the latest Eternal series that came out in the year 2021 but wrapped up in the year 2022. When it came to the latest Eternal series, they had learned a lot of dark secrets about their own race, but also the Deviants and the mutants as well. We also saw the return of Thanos. Yes, you heard that right. Thanos came back to life and he was whooping on the Eternals left and right, and also became the Prime Eternal. It was a very good and interesting series, and so I do hope you enjoy today's full story video. And so to begin today's storyline, we actually do pick up with the return of Icarus. Now, the reason why I say the return, because the last time we saw the Eternals, they all got killed off. Now, of course, when it comes to the Eternals, they're basically like the mutants right now. They have a way to come back to life. Now, matter of fact, the Eternals had that concept first before the mutants did. Now, with that being said, though, when they all had died, they were all brought back to life in this storyline. But Icarus is the last one to come back to life. And the reason why, because he was the last one to die. Now, with that being said, we also kind of find out that somebody is actually narrating this storyline. And of course, it's known as the Machine. See, the Machine is a newer concept in Marvel Comics. Not completely new, it's almost 20 years old, but it is newer than the Eternals. Now, with that being said, the Machine is basically an AI system that lives throughout the entire Earth. But at the same time, it does control other machines the Eternals use as a way to protect the Earth. Because when it comes to the Eternals, they were technically made by Celestials as a way to protect the Earth, to protect the humans. And so with that being said, you have the Machine right now kind of talking us through the storyline. Now, with that being said, though, when it comes to Icarus, he's now back to life once again, but he's also been called by Zoras. Now, when it comes to Zoras, he's basically the man in charge of the Eternals, and right now he does have a very important task for Icarus. And so of course you do have Icarus right now fly over to actually see Zoras. And so when it comes to their meeting, we actually do get reminded of a particular concept, better known as the excluded. See, the excluded is actually a concept where technically you have few Eternals who are locked away for mistakes they made over the years as the Eternals were protecting the Earth. And so if you ever do break a law, break a rule, or you made some huge mistake, you are better known as a excluded, and you are locked away in that particular area to most time never come back. Now, sometimes you can come back, but most times you don't. But when it comes to Zoras, it's Zoras right now telling our friend Icarus it's about time to go ahead and release a particular person. Now, as soon as Zoras tells Icarus who to release, Icarus is right now very scared about the idea of who he is actually releasing. And we kind of find out the person he had to release is actually Sprite. Now, when it comes to Sprite, she was actually a boy. And what I mean by that is sometimes Eternals will go through a change. Now, this change can only happen every 20 to 25,000 years. Either way, though, when it came to Sprite, she is, or was a boy, but she is technically a young child who will be a young child forever. That's how she was made when she came eternal. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Sprite, if she ever gets bored, she will basically do a lot of bad things to entertain herself, to make things more interesting. Now, here's the thing though, because right now Sprite wants to go down to Earth. And the reason why, because For her mind right now, she has not seen the Earth in a very long time, even though in previous storylines in Marvel's timeline, she literally seen the Earth maybe a few months ago or a few years ago. But the reason why she thinks that she's been gone for so long, because when you come back to life, they have to use your last backup. And so when it came to her last backup, that last backup died many years ago, way before the humans were able to evolve on Earth. And so, of course, for this backup, it's kind of like, yeah, the last thing I remember was none of this. And so, of course, when she does head over to New York, she is going to be somewhat impressed of how far the human race had technically evolved. And of course, when Sprite actually goes down to Earth, she's very impressed in what she sees. To her mindset, this is a very huge improvement. But at the same time though, technically her last backup is so many years old that technically it's kind of like, yes, this is a huge improvement for you. But for other internals, this right here is just yesterday. Either way right now, when it comes to the internals, or Icarus and also Sprite, they are actually confronted by Iron Man. And Iron Man usually does have close ties to the Eternals for a whole lot of different reasons. And basically right now, this is just Iron Man making sure that everything is okay with the Eternals. And the reason why, because like I said earlier, there was a previous event where technically the Eternals all died. And so right now it's Iron Man saying, hey, I'm just making sure everything's okay. And oh, by the way, why is Sprite a girl now? Because when I last saw her, or him, he was a boy. Now he's a girl. What's going on? And of course, you have Icarus say every 20 or 25,000 years, basically Eternal can change their appearance. And that was Sprite did technically. But then out of nowhere, they do get a certain kind of call. And this call says excess deviation, which means that right now they have to deal with a certain kind of situation. And so of course you have Iron Man leave, but you do have our two heroes, Icarus and of course Sprite, go handle this certain problem that only Eternals can actually handle. And we kind of find out that technically the reason why the alarm went off because there is a deviant problem. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to Marvel Comics, you have three different races that were technically made when it came to the Celestials when they first arrived on the Earth. Of course, you had the humans, and you also had the Eternals, but you also had the Deviants. Unfortunately though, when it came to the Deviants, they're kind of like the wrongfully mutated people of the Earth. And so of course, with that being said, most of them technically stay underground. Now, here's the thing, the Eternals and also the Deviants are sometimes in a endless war, but at the same time though, the Eternals make sure the Deviants stay in their place, meaning that do not try to do anything bad that could cause problems for the human race, but also for the Earth. And so right now, this Deviant right here is basically trying to do some bad things. And so that means our heroes have to step in. So you do have Icarus and also Sprite work together to actually defeat this one particular Deviant, and then they're able to actually move on with their day. And this is where technically we get into the huge problem of this storyline. And what I mean by that is we actually do pick up right now with Icarus and also Sprite arriving to Olympus. Of course, this is one of the many homes of the Eternals. But the problem is though, when they do arrive back to Olympus, they are actually confronted by another character known as Phastos. Or Phastos. I want to say it's Phastos. Either way, you do have Phastos right now tell both Icarus and also Sprite the horrible news that Zoras has been killed. And this is very huge because when it comes to the Eternals, he was the man in charge. He was the prime Eternal, and now he's been killed off. But the thing is, it seemed like someone had crushed his skull. But the question is right now, what are they going to do next? And that is the moment where our heroes are technically confronted by, of course, Derig. Now, Derig is kind of like the Loki of the Eternals. He's always up to something. Now, with that being said, though, he technically tell our heroes, Icarus and also Sprite, that what they're going to do next is wait for the resurrection of Zoras. Because once he does come back to life, he'll be able to actually tell us who killed him off. Now, of course, like I said earlier, Icarus does not trust Derig at all because technically he is a snake. Now, with that being said, though, you actually do have most of the Eternals right now believe that Sprite was the one who must have killed off Zoras. Now we know, and Icarus knows, that Sprite is technically innocent. And the reason why, because he was actually with, of course, Icarus when they're on the Earth. But the thing is, though, when it comes to the Eternals, they're kind of like, no, we cannot trust Sprite at all. Because when it came to a previous storyline, it was Sprite who technically was the reason why all the Eternals had died. But on top of that, though, Zoras was the one who actually did kill off Sprite in the last incident. And so right now, technically, when it comes to all Eternals, they feel like Sprite must have been the one to kill off Zoras as a way to get revenge. Now, when it comes to Icarus, he's not okay with just sitting around and waiting for Zoras to come back to life. And so he says, I'm going to follow a trail to figure out who was the one who came here last and killed off Zoras. And so you have Icarus ask the machine, did anybody use the teleporters recently? And the machine said yes, but unfortunately, the machine cannot tell him who it was. Apparently, it was someone who is unknown to her system. And so right now, it's Icarus right now wondering, where did it go to after they had killed off Zoras? And so, of course, right now you have Sprite and also Icarus follow the trail of the teleporters to figure out where did the potential murderer go to. And so we do see Icarus and Sprite actually go over to Titanos. Now, when it comes to Titanos, this used to be the home of the Eternals. Now, of course, by this point, it no longer is. It's technically right now in ruins. But of course, when it comes to Icarus and Sprite, when the person who had killed off Zoras, they had used the teleporter and came over here. And so right now, it's Icarus hoping to find that person somewhere here on Titanos and to hopefully arrest them or to hopefully kill them off. But the thing is, though, while you have Icarus and Sprite right now traveling through Titanos, well, that is the moment where you actually have Icarus see some kind of vision, where apparently in the future, he is going to fail a young boy known as Toby, who dies 13 years old. And apparently, when it comes to Toby, Icarus was supposed to protect Toby, but somehow Toby died. And apparently, Icarus feels very bad about that in the future. Now, here's the thing, though, because right now, present day, Icarus has no idea who Toby is. And so right now, it's Icarus wondering, who is Toby and why would I care so much for Toby? But then out of nowhere, you have somebody say, oh great, more Eternals. This is just dumb, it's stupid, it's time for me to go ahead and kill off all the Eternals. And when Icarus turns around, he is actually confronted by no other than Thanos himself. And so when we get into the second chapter of the storyline, we actually do pick up right now with Icarus fighting against Thanos. Now, of course, this is not a fair battle for Icarus at all. And honestly, I felt bad for this dude because this is someone right now who believes that technically he should be able to actually win against Thanos. But in reality, it's like, no, dude, there's no way you'll be able to actually defeat Thanos at all. But on top of that, though, you have no idea how powerful he is. This is actually your first fight between the two of you guys. And so either way, when it comes to their battle, it does go on for a few pages, but you do have Icarus tell Sprite, get out of here. Go get the others, tell them it was Thanos. Thanos was the one who had basically killed off our leader. come back here with reinforcements to help me defeat him. But the thing is though, Sprite realized that if he does leave Icarus behind, Icarus is going to die. But either way, the battle continues on up to a certain moment where technically you have Thanos being able to actually kill off Icarus by ripping off his head just like that. And you're like, oh my God, dude, Icarus, you died, but like you died, my dude. And so for Thanos, it's a win. But then he realized it was actually a trick. Because thanks to Sprite was able to make a construct of course, Icarus, because he realized that Icarus was actually losing the battle against Thanos. And so as the fight went on, Sprite technically replaced the real Icarus with the fake one to get the real Icarus out of there so that he'll be able to survive, but to also get more help down the road to deal with Thanos. Because if Thanos was the killer, then you're gonna need all hands on deck to be able to just stop him. And so you have Sprite grab Icarus and they technically get the heck out of there before Thanos sees them and tries to kill them right then and there. But then we get this flashback, and see, when it comes to this flashback, it's being told to us by the machine, because remember, the machine is technically the one right now narrating the storyline for us. And right now your machine tell us a flashback about Icarus, because when it comes to Icarus, there was also another time where when he was on Titanos, he saw some kind of vision back in the Bronze Age of men. Of course, back in the caveman era of time. Either way though, when it came to this vision, he saw some young boy who was on the coastline just looking out into the ocean. But of course, apparently the boy saw some kind of monster. And so of course, that monster was a deviant. And remember, Eternals are the ones who technically deal with deviants. And this was a true evil deviant. And so with that being said, you had Icarus go down into the world to find that deviant. Unfortunately, when he did arrive, the deviant was not there. Now here's the thing. He does ask the young boy, have you seen the monster? The boy says yes, but he has no idea where the monster actually went to. And so you had Icarus actually ask the young boy to stay here and to basically give him a sign to say, when you do see the monster, please give me a sign so I can come back here and deal with that monster. But here comes the big problem though. The deviant never came back just like that. It took many years. And of course, that boy stayed there. And the reason why, because that was the caveman era of men. And so of course, when that young boy actually saw Icarus, he looked at Icarus as a god, even though Icarus is not a god. And so of course, even though he thought Icarus was a god, he was bound to listen to this supposed god. And so he stayed there on that beach, waiting for that monster to come back to tell Icarus, hey, the deviant is back here. Can you please come here and deal with it? But like I said, the deviant did not come back that quickly. It took many years, to the point where the young boy was now an old man. And on top of that, he had a son who also had a son. But unfortunately, when it came to the boy, the first boy, he was not a family man. He was not even there for his grandkids, because he was doing what, of course, Icarus had told him so many years ago, to stay here to warn me if the deviant does return. And of course, when the deviant comes back, Icarus finds out what he did wrong here. He basically ruined an entire family because he told that boy to stay there on the beach, which he did. But the boy was not a father. The boy was not a grandfather. And so, of course, technically, when it comes to Icarus, he did ruin a whole line of family just for one deviant. But getting back over to the present day, we actually do pick up right now with Icarus and also Sprite going back over to Droog to tell him what happened to them. And of course, they fought against Thanos. Now this is actually very huge. And right now to Icarus, they need to go back to where Thanos is and take care of him. But when it comes to Droog, he's kind of like, no, we are not going to do that at all. We're going to stay right here and wait for Zoras to come back to life. And when he does, then he'll tell us what to do next. That is the right steps we need to take right now. But here comes the big problem though, because then out of nowhere, you do have another Eternal appear. And when this other one does appear, he tells Icarus, Sprite, and of course also Droog that Zoras is not coming back to life at all. And there are two big reasons why. The first is that the Wardens, the one who technically do their work to bring someone back to life, they all have been killed off. But then he said the machines that are technically used to bring someone back to life right now, they don't work right now. The dead is going to stay dead. And that is why I say that technically right now, this is really more saying the Eternals are going to die. This is the death of the Eternals because now they lost their way to actually come back to life now. And now they also lost their leader. This is how big things are getting right now. But then another character does appear. And that would be Cersei. Now, when it comes to Cersei, she's basically right now playing the neutral zone. And what I mean by that is, yes, Icarus is right technically that right now there should be an army of Eternals trying their best to stop Thanos. But at the same time though, you also have Droog somewhat being right as well. That technically they need to make some kind of master plan on what they're going to do for their community. But at the same time, also make another plan to figure out how to stop Thanos correctly. But when it comes to Cersei though, she's kind of like, no, we are technically right now going to do neither. Because right now we technically need to figure out who killed off our leader, who killed off Zoras. And so right now it's her saying, I am going to take Sprite and also Icarus with me. One, because Icarus right now needs to be healed up. But on top of that, I can only have a small circle of people that I actually trust. Now after that, we actually do see Cersei take the small group of characters that she actually trusts to her room. Now of course that will be Icarus and Phastos. Now Sprite is there as well, but here's the thing though. She does not actually trust Sprite. It's just her saying that I want to keep my eye on you to make sure that technically you are not the one behind all this mess that we're going through, because technically the last time it was you. And so right now I want to make sure my eyes can stay on you and basically stop you. Now with that being said, you then have Phastos bring up another problem, and that is the machines. And let me explain. So when it comes to the machines the Eternals use, it technically does live throughout the entire Earth. It keeps the Earth alive. But on top of that, the machines help the Eternals protect the humans. But the problem is right now, the machines are not working, which means that right now the Earth could possibly die. It could also cause storms across the entire world, geostorms. And 1 week they have left to basically get the machines turned back on to hopefully save the Earth. Now, of course, you do have Cersei say, we need to find the traitor fast. Now, here's the thing. They do go with that game plan, but Icarus leaves because right now he wants to handle a different kind of situation. And we kind of find out that technically when it comes to Icarus, he went to go find Toby because remember, back on Titanos, right before he fought against Thanos, he saw a vision, and that vision basically told him, you are going to grieve in the future over a young boy named Toby. Now again, when it comes to Icarus, he's kind of like, who is Toby? And so that's why he left the group to go find Toby, to see why in the world Toby is going to be so important to him for, and why will he grieve in the future if Toby actually dies. And so right now it's Icarus saying, I want to learn more about Toby, but at the same time, I want to prevent his future. I do not want to see him die as a young boy. We then pick up with another character of the Eternals as we jump into the 3rd chapter, and that will be Athena. Now when it comes to Athena, she's basically one of those Eternals who's always looking for love. And that is her biggest problem right there. And I'll explain more as we go through the book, but technically right now, she's technically an internal that always falls in love with a deviant. Even though she tries her best to not fall in love with deviants, she always does. And of course, that is a huge problem because usually deviants are technically the enemies of the internals. Either way right now, we do see her waking up with her lover, of course, another deviant, but then as soon as she walks outside, she realized that she might have some company very soon. And of course, that company is the Internals, because right now you have the Internals coming here to basically question Dina. And the reason why, because she is the daughter of Zoras, and that right there is very huge. And the reason why, because with her being the daughter of Zoras, but also sleeping with the enemy of the Internals, it looks very bad for her, but also looks very bad for him. And so right now, technically, it's kind of like, we believe that you are the traitor. We believe that technically you are the one who had killed your father off. Now, of course, getting back over to the idea of her being a traitor, they already think that of her because again, she sleeps with deviants. She's in love with deviants, and deviants are technically enemies of the internals. And so right now, technically, when it comes to the internals, she already been labeled as a traitor. And so when you take that, but now the death of her father, they're kind of like, yeah, you are the one who killed off Zoras. Now, here's the thing though, she had no idea that her father died. But again, they don't believe her because she is the daughter of Zoras, who's right now sleeping with the enemy. But apparently the reason why the Eternals believe that she was the one to kill off Zoras because they had a meeting right before he died. At the end of that meeting, she left, but she expressed how much she hates her father, that she wishes he would be dead, that he dies. And so because of that, it's kind of like, yeah, you may be the one who had actually killed off your father. You could be the traitor. And so then we jump back over to Icarus. Now, when we do, it's technically Icarus right now talking to Toby, but also Toby's parents as well. Because right now they're freaking out. They come outside and they see a floating man who's right now telling them, hey, listen, so I came here to protect your boy because he is going to die very soon. I have no idea how or when, but he is going to die. And that right there would scare any kind of parents at all with the idea of their child being killed or hurt in some kind of way. And unfortunately, you have no idea how to protect your child from getting hurt or killed in some kind of way. Now, of course, that is the moment where you technically have the area begin to hell. And what I mean by that is we have to remember what we learned earlier. With the machines right now being turned off, of course, the Earth is having a hard time staying alive. And so you're going to have geostorms all over the Earth, including one right here, where it begins to hell in the area. But this hell is not small. This hell is very large. And so, of course, you have Icarus use his powers as a way to protect both the family and other innocent people in the area. But at the same time, it's still the parents wondering what is going to happen to Toby though. And so then we get this flashback. Now, when it comes to this flashback, it does take place 10,000 years in the past, but it's actually very important about the idea of explaining why Athena is actually a bad person. And I don't say a bad person, I really say more bad at picking a lover. And what I mean by that is 10,000 years ago, her and Cersei had a meeting. And when it came to this meeting, they were talking about her latest lover, who was a deviant. And that was a huge problem back then because again, the internals are technically enemies with the deviants. They cannot be together. But with Dina, she's all like, no, I found a deviant I fell in love with, that I truly believe in, and I feel like he is the right one. And so when it comes to Cersei, she's all like, okay, you believe that you found true love. Well, let me show you your errors when it comes to falling in love with a deviant. And so you have Cersei actually take Athena to a random area where there are a bunch of dead bodies. but these dead bodies are missing specific organs. And right now they're floating in a pool of blood. But here comes the big problem though, because it's Athena right now wondering who killed all these different people. And you have Cersei say, it was your lover. Here's the thing, you can live forever. He cannot. And he found that very interesting. And so he tried his best to find different ways to kind of help him live longer and longer so that he'll be able to live with you as long as he can. But he killed innocent people, some of his own people. You cannot tell me a deviant is not evil when they do something like this to their own people. And when he does appear, he agrees. He confirms. He's all like, yeah, I did all of this to be with you longer, but it's so sick and nasty. Either way, you actually have Athena kill off her ex-lover back then because, again, the crimes that he had committed. And she said that she would never fall in love with another deviant. But the thing is, her heart, it craves for love. And unfortunately, when she finds someone who gives her just a small amount of love, she falls for it just like that. And that is a huge difference between her and also Cersei. For Cersei, she finds a guy to just use them for, of course, the nasty stuff. But when it comes to Athena, it's like, no, she wants true love. And unfortunately, she's bad at finding it. But to close on today's video, you actually have Cersei get a call from Droog. Now this call is actually very important. And the reason why, because when she does get a call from him, he gives her bad news. He went back home to Polaris. Now Polaris is one of the many different areas the Eternals live in. But of course, each area has a ruler. And when it came to Droog, his father was the ruler, but the problem is though, his father is dead. But on top of that though, so are other people in the actual area, which means that now technically Droog is the next person in charge of Polaris. But the thing is, whoever killed Suras must have came here, killed off the king of this area, but at the same time killed off the entire staff and made sure all the machines could not work either. But at the same time though, now is Cersei realizing that Droog is now in charge of Polaris. And this is actually very huge. But this is where So we're going to continue our coverage over the Eternals, the 2021 series, and we pick up with the second half of Volume 1. Now, when it comes to the second half of Volume 1, we have to remember that right now we are getting a story where it is the death of the Eternals, because right now the main suspect, Thanos, is going around killing off the Eternals. Now usually the Eternals have a way to come back to life. Unfortunately, that way is no longer there. And the reason why, because their way was their machine. See, once they die, the machine is able to bring them back to life. The problem is the machine is not working. And so, of course, if they die, they can no longer come back to life. But here are some other problems as well, because when it comes to the machine, it also gives the Eternals the ability to teleport all over the world at a faster rate. But on top of that, the machine is built inside the Earth. And so it kind of helps the Earth stay alive. And if the machine is not working, that means the Earth could die sooner or later. They only have a couple days, or really a few weeks, to get the machine back and running again to save the Earth. And so when we jump into today's storyline, we pick up with Cersei and Phastos. And when it comes to Cersei, she's telling Phastos that he has to continue to find a way to get the machine working again, because right now they're on a time limit. If they're not able to get the machine back up and running, the Earth is gonna die. And so you have Cersei say, I'm gonna leave for right now, and I'm hoping to come back with the idea the machine is working again. But I'm going to pay a visit to Tony Stark to see him and the Avengers or the Illuminati could help us save the Earth, even though I feel like when it comes to regular humans, they can't handle an eternal problem like this at all. And so unfortunately, I feel like this is going to be a pointless meeting. We jump over to Polaria, and we have to remember at the end of our last video, the entire people of Polaria were killed off. And that is very huge because now there are no survivors except one, and that would be Droog. Now the main suspect is still Thanos, but you also have other suspects as well, like Droog. When it comes to Droog, for me personally, he's kind of like the Loki of the Eternals. He's always up to something. He's always scheming. And so right now, with his entire people being dead here in Polaria, you have Athena and Kingo believe that maybe Droog is behind the killing of the people of Polaria. But right now, you have Droog say, it's not me. Like, why would I do that? That means I killed off my own father. But the reason why he would do that is so he'll be able to get a higher ranking level in the eternal line. And so they're saying, you may say you're innocent, but in reality, I believe you killed off your father and the entire people of Polaria so that you may now become a new superior eternal. But while you have Kingo, Athena, and also Droog talking to one another and trying to figure out if Droog is actually innocent, well, they're confronted by Thanos. Because we have to remember that technically Thanos is an eternal, but a tad bit different, still eternal. Either way, when it comes to Thanos, he does reappear right behind our heroes. And this is a very huge problem because when it comes to Kingo, Droog, and also Athena, they didn't realize that Thanos has the ability to use the tunnels that help Eternals teleport across the world so freely. And that is a problem when it comes to the machine now working correctly, because now the machine has given someone like Thanos the ability to access tunnels that he should no longer have access to. But either way, when he does appear, it does lead into a battle between him and the heroes who are right now in Polaria. Now this does last for a few pages, but while you have the fight going on, well, you didn't have Droog try to use his mind powers on Thanos. Now, for us at first, we already know that this is a dumb idea because Thanos is not somebody who could be easily tricked by some kind of psychic attack. If you're going to try to defeat Thanos, you need a more complicated but better plan to trick him and to keep him off his feet. Either way, you have Thanos being able to go toe-to-toe with our heroes, except you didn't have Athena being able to stab Thanos from behind. And with him doing that, he realized he has to leave because now he has been injured, literally injured, to the point where he could bleed out and die. We then have to jump back over to Sprite. Now remember, this is a new version of Sprite because Sprite in this time period is now a female. Usually Sprite is a male, but apparently when it comes to Eternals, every few thousands of years, they go through a change, and sometimes they can come back as a man or a woman or something else sometimes. Either way, when it comes to Sprite, she came back as a girl, a little girl who is an Eternal, but she was assigned to watch over a character known as Toby. And the reason why, because Icarus, the main character of the Eternals, had a vision where he saw Toby die, but apparently Icarus was mourning his death. But for Icarus, he has no idea why he would mourn the death of Toby. And so he has gone out of his way to make sure that nothing happens to Toby at all. Unfortunately, at the end of the story, something does happen to Toby. Either way, you had Icarus leave Sprite behind to watch over Toby, to make sure that nothing happens at all. But you also have Icarus saying, I have to go help the rest of the Eternals deal with this problem we have right now, because somebody is trying to get rid of us, but also the entire Earth as well. But we have to jump back over to our heroes that fought against Thanos. Now, doing that, we do pick up with our heroes realizing Droog is innocent. Because if Thanos did appear and killed off the entire people of Polaria, that means Droog was not the one who had done it, which means he's now in the clear. And so you have Thena and also Kingo say, we have to leave for now and try to find another way to hunt down Thanos, but to also kill him off. Now, once they do leave, another portal opens up and you have Thanos reappear. Now, at first, you're left to believe that Thanos and Droog have been working together this entire time. That is incorrect. Is Droog saying, when I went to your mind, I realized that you are working with a traitor. Now, I have no idea who that traitor is, but I found that very offensive. Because Thanos, if you were trying to get rid of the Eternals, and if you were looking for a traitor, you should have came to me first. Either way, I say now you and I should work together to see what your master plan could actually do. But when we jump into the 5th chapter of the book, we pick up with Cersei meeting up with Tony Stark. Because remember, she did say that she's going to ask for his help and the rest of the Illuminati to also help out to find a way to actually save the Earth. But at the same time, she also said that she does not believe that the humans could be able to help the Eternals deal with this certain problem. Either way, while you do have the two characters having this lunch, dinner, whatever, well, you did have Cersei reveal that she has been working for Thanos this entire time, that in reality, sooner or later, Thanos is going to be the ruler of the entire world, or possibly universe. But right after she says that, well, she is grabbed by somebody from behind who's coming through another portal. And we kind of find out that she was grabbed by the Forgotten One. See, the Forgotten One is one of those Eternals that's really more on the human side rather than the Eternal side. And so anytime the Eternals have a problem, when it comes to the Forgotten One, well, most of the time he tries his best to not help the other Eternals out. But when it comes to the humans, he's really down to help them out a whole lot more. Either way, the reason why you have the Eternals coming after the Forgotten One, because in the past, when the machine had not worked properly in the past, it was because of him as well in the past. And so they believe that right now, the reason why machine is not working properly is because of him once again. Because he's a character that truly understands the machine from the inside out. Either way, you do have Icarus fight against the Forgotten One and actually defeats him. And so we jump back over to Thanos and Droog. And when we do, it's really more Thanos telling Droog that before this series, Thanos was dead, or he thought he had died, but somebody brought him back to life, which means that whoever did portray the Eternals, they were the ones who brought Thanos back to life, but is also using Thanos to get rid of the Eternals. Now, we're not being told who was the person that brought Thanos back to life and who is using Thanos to attack the Eternals, or why is the person doing that in the first place. But we come to find out that Thanos technically cannot die now, thanks to the person who brought him back to life. But when it comes to Droog, you have Droog say, you know what, Thanos? Let's try a different way to kind of get back to the person who have brought you back to life, but to also make you a free man once again. But when we pick back up with the Eternals, you have the Eternals right now talking to the Forgotten One. And when it comes to the Forgotten One, they really believe that he is the reason why the machine is not working. And because again, in the past, he was known to have messed with the machine as a way to get back at the Eternals. But this time he says, no, it wasn't me. Now we already know it's not Droog. We already know it is Thanos, but Thanos is helping somebody, which means that somebody in the group is actually a traitor. But the question is though, who? And right now the Eternals are questioning the wrong person because it's not the Forgotten One. He even says, listen, let me prove to you that I'm actually innocent. But on top of that though, he says, when it comes to the machine will heal itself over time. Meaning that even if the machine is broken over time, the machine will recover. Which means that somebody else did something where the machine is unable to actually heal itself. And so again, why would I do that? And so he says, let me show you that I am innocent. And you have the other Eternals agree to let him show his proof, his evidence that basically he is an innocent person. Now Icarus says, if you do lie, I will beat the truth out of you. And so you have the Forgotten One take our heroes over to an area where he says, listen, if I was going to sabotage the machine, I would come here because this one area could do heavy damage to the machine. But at the same time, if you are a scientist and you are trying to fix the machine, well, you would come here first to make sure that this area was not sabotaged. And that is very important because if the Forgotten One did it, then Phastos, who's right now trying to fix the machine, would come here first, but he never did. And so you have the Forgotten One say, oh, if that's the case, then in reality, the person who did it is Phastos, because I taught him what to do if the machine is not working properly. You come here first. It's a well-known fact. And the thing is, if he's trying to save the Eternals, but also the machine, well, he should have came here first. And he didn't. And so that tells our heroes Phastos is actually a traitor. And once he realized that he has been caught and the Eternals are on their way over to him, he says, Thanos, it's time for you to get to work. Which means that he was the one who brought Thanos back to life. But on top of that though, he says he's not trying to destroy the Earth. He was only trying to destroy the Eternals. But again, we still have no idea why. And so we do jump back 1 month in the past. And when we do, we pick up with Phastos bringing Thanos back to life. Because Thanos did die around the same time the Eternals did. Except the Eternals came back thanks to the machine. Except Phastos was the first one to come back. And that is very important. And the reason why, because as soon as he came back, he began to go deeper into the machine to learn more dark secrets about the machine. And remember, the machine is part of the Earth. And this begins the process of us learning more about the machine, but also the Eternals. But apparently, whatever he discovered down there, he realized something evil or something wrong with the machine, but also with the Eternals as well. And so he says, listen, I have a job for you, but you cannot betray me. But let you know right now, the job I'm giving you is a job you are going to like, which is killing off the Eternals. Are you down? And of course we know Thanos all like, yeah man, I'm down. Let's go ahead and kill some Eternals. Let's do this. But getting back over to the present day, everything is falling apart because while you have the Eternals trying their best to get over to where Phastos is at, but also the machine, well, they're confronted by Thanos. And when it comes to Thanos, you already know homeboy is not playing around at all. Thanos says, you know what? I was told to kill you guys, and so I'm going to kill you guys. Now, we do see the Eternals actually being able to overpower Thanos. But here is the problem, because while our heroes are fighting against Thanos, you have Phastos saying the machine is too far gone, meaning that right now the Earth could possibly die here in a matter of hours. Starting with the weather could go crazy enough where now you're going to have some serious damage across the world thanks to the weather. But on top of that, other things are going to begin to happen because the machine is no longer working. And so you have Phastos say, I need help here. I need somebody to actually fix the heart of the machine. Once they're able to do that, the machine should be able to operate correctly once again. And so you have Icarus lead the Eternals who are fighting against Thanos to go ahead and take him down, but at the same time to save the entire world. And so as soon as he leaves and arrives, you have Phastos tells him what to do. You have to fix the heart of the machine. Icarus leads. And here comes a very crucial moment, because when it comes to Phastos, he did have a way to control Thanos. And just in case Thanos did try to portray him, he did have a backup plan to shut down Thanos. The problem is though, when he does try to remember how to shut down Thanos, well, Drew steps in and makes him forget. And that is very huge. And the reason why, because now Thanos can't die. Thanos will stay alive. And with him being alive, that means he can do a whole lot more evil things in the Marvel Universe. All thanks to Thanos, but really all thanks to Drew as well. Either way, you do have Icarus being able to get to the heart of a machine and being able to fix it and to be able to save the day. But this leads into us learning the dark secret about the Eternals. Now, Icarus did die when he was trying to fix the machine. Really, he did fix the machine, but he still died. But his death is really important. And the reason why, because when it comes to Icarus' death, it ties back into his vision, but also the dark secret that Thanos knows. And what I mean by that is, you have Thanos tells the other Eternals that when he came back to life first, after the rest of the Eternals, he went back into the machine to learn the dark secrets about the machine. And he did learn one in particular. And that one particular secret was that every single time an Eternal dies and comes back to life, a human dies as well. But their life energy is given over to an Eternal to bring that Eternal back to life. And so right now you have Icarus coming back to life, which means that right now a random human is dying. Except this time it's not going to be a random human. It's going to be Toby. Because let's not forget, Icarus saw a vision where in the future he was going to mourn the death of Toby. But at that point, he never met Toby. He had no idea who Toby was. Now, over the last video, in this one, he did get a tad bit closer to Toby because now he knows him. But now we know why in the future he was going to be sad, because Toby dies so that he is able to come back to life. And so now for Eternals, the question is, how can we change that? Because for the Eternals, their main goal is to protect the Earth, but to also protect the humans as well. Except now they realize that they're kind of part of the reason humans die, because every single time they die, a human dies when they try to come back to life. Now, with the machine working properly, they are able to bring back Zuras. Now, when it comes to Zuras, remember, he was the leader of the Eternals that died at the very beginning of this series. With the machine working again, they are able to bring him back to life. And once they do, they tell him the dark secret about the machine. Now, once he hears the dark secret, you did have the Eternals tell him, hey, our main goal right now is to change how the machine works. Because right now you are talking about the idea that every single time we die and come back to life, a human dies, but of course, they cannot come back to life. And that is very, very important. Now, when it comes to Zuras, he says, you know what, fine. If we're going to do that, all the Eternals across the board have to agree. That means all Eternals across the galaxy, universe, Earth, whatever, has to agree on this. And so with that being said, he says, it's time for us to call a meeting in the Unimind. Now, the Unimind is a newer concept where the Eternals are able to connect their minds all together to have a conversation about big topics like this one right here. And the problem is, though, you have Cersei tell our group here that technically they are going to lose that battle, because there are more Eternals who don't care for humans rather than Eternals who do care for humans. And so right now, when it comes down to voting, they're gonna lose that battle. They have to find a different way to actually change the machine. But the question is, though, how? How are they going to do that? And so to close on today's video, we see the Eternals go over to Lemuria. And when they do, they're trying to find a specific person who could actually help them change how the machine works. But the problem is, though, it seems like this person is very evil. And for them to go there, well, it's them saying we have no other choice. If we're going to accomplish something here, we have to go to this person right here to accomplish our goal. But this So we're going to cover Eternals Thanos Rising, #1. This is one of those one-shot books that Marvel put out to tie into a certain series going on at the moment. And when it comes to this one here, it's really more of, hey, we are trying to retell you the origin of Thanos, or we're trying to retell you how Thanos is connected to the other Eternals and why he is so important when it comes to the Eternals. And so this book does a pretty good job helping out new readers jump into the idea of learning more about the past of Thanos, but also the past of the Eternals as well. And honestly, for me, for somebody who wasn't really big on the Eternals, this was a great read. To sit down and learn actually how Thanos is involved when it comes to the Eternals, but also why he's so connected to them and why he's so important as a failure for the Eternals. And so to begin today's video, we have to jump back 200,000 years ago to be reminded that when it comes to the Eternals, they are a very old race. With that being said though, 200,000 years ago, they were basically having a war known as the Titan Schism. Now this war came out of one simple argument. Should the Eternals reproduce? That was a very big question right there, because when it came to the Eternals, they had no need to reproduce to keep their line alive, because even if they die, the Great Machine, and we learned this in our last video, has the ability to bring them back to life. And so they never had to say, oh, you know what, let's go ahead and mate and let's have some children. They had no need for that, except one day somebody said, hey, what would happen if we are able to reproduce and mate and have children? What would happen? Now, on top of that, you then have folks say, what would happen if we are able to mate with other races across the universe, even humans on Earth as well? It could lead to more powerful characters, more powerful beings. Now, they were correct. The problem was, though, this led into an argument, because even though you had Eternals began to do that, began to mate with other races, including humans, and producing children, those children were technically not Eternals. Well, to most Eternals, they looked at them as a failure or something else that's not really part of the Eternal line. And so when it came to two brothers, it led to an argument that led into a war, because Alars feel like when it comes to Eternals, even if they do mate and being able to reproduce children with other races, those children are still technically Eternals. They should be part of the Great Machine, meaning that if they die, the Great Machine should be able to bring them back to life. But his brother Zoras, and we saw Zoras in our last video, he said no, that basically these Eternals or these beings are nowhere close to being Eternals. There's something else, something different. And so because of that argument, it led to an all-out war. Now in this war, you have Sprite confront Alars, and the reason why, because their mother, Zoras and Alar's mother, is saying it's time to call for a ceasefire to find a way to have a peace treaty between both sides, because this war is tearing the Eternals apart. And so this next section leads into a great conversation. And what I mean by that, it tells us how families work when it comes to the Eternals. And what I mean by that, when it came to the Celestials, when they came to Earth, all they did was came down and said, bam, 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 let's create some different races. And then they created the Eternals, but then they left. And so after they were made, you didn't have the Eternals say, hey, we should make up families. And so they began to tell each other what they are to each other. Like, hey, I'm your brother. Hey, I'm your father. Hey, you're my mother. Hey, you're my daughter. That's how it went for them. And so right now for Zoras, but also Alar, yes, they are brothers, but in reality, they are not. And the same thing for their mother. Yes, she's their mother, but in reality, she's not their mother. Either way, this is her saying, I'm trying to find a peaceful way to end this war. And she says, I agree with Alar, because what she is saying is that it will probably be a good idea for Eternals to reproduce, to make more of us, to have children here. But at the same time though, she's also saying, listen, it could lead to problems down the road. And so I agree with Zuras. This could possibly be a bad idea. And so what she wants to do is she wants to exile her son Alar, saying, hey, go away. When you go away, do your whole experiment out there and then come back and tell us how great it is. Once you're able to do that, we then say, you know what, Alar was right, we should have children and then add those kids to the great machine. But for right now, you have to leave. You are exiled, because Zuras is right. This could be a problem down the road. This is the safer route. And when it comes to Mother, she also says every single Eternal will be mind wiped so that they will not remember this war, but at the same time, not remember what led to that war. The huge argument about the idea of Eternals reproducing, having children. And so every single Eternal except her and Alar and also Zuras remembers what happened when it came to that war, what led to that war, and what was the final solution for that war. But while you have Alar beginning to leave for his exile, he does say one thing that he needs to do first before he's able to begin his experiment, which is that he needs to find a lover. And the reason why, because he's saying, if I'm going to do this experiment, I want to make sure the child comes from my line, because this is my experiment. It makes more sense for me to be involved, heavily involved in my own experiment. And so he says, I'm going to find another Eternal that was also exiled. If I'm able to get her and make her fall in love with me, hopefully we'll be able to produce a child. And we'll see what happens next when it comes to that child. And we see him go over to Titan. And the reason why, because he's looking for a particular person. Now, when it comes to Titan, at this point in time, it was completely wrecked. I mean, completely wrecked. Either way, the person that he is looking for is a woman known as Suzanne. Now, when it comes to Suzanne, she belonged to another group of Eternals that were all exiled, except when it comes to her group, she's the last person standing. The rest have all died. Now remember, when it comes to Eternals, even though they die, they come right back to life. And so when it comes to her group, yeah, they did come back to life back on Earth. And as soon as they were brought back to life, they were locked away in the Excluded. And remember, the Excluded is an area where Eternals go if they are technically, being locked up for doing the wrongdoings. Either way, when it comes to Mentor or Alar, he is saying, hey, I need your help. I want to prove something here. I want to prove that if two Eternals are able to come together and reproduce a child, that child will still be a great Eternal, possibly something even better. Now, at first, she's kind of like, so your goal is to find a way to seduce me. Really? You came all the way out here to just get some, to prove a point to your mother and father and the rest of the Eternals. But apparently, she says yes. And they begin the process of actually changing Titan into something better, but they also fall in love. And over time, when it comes to Alar and Suzanne, they were able to turn Titan into something new, something beautiful, a brand new colony on there. You had different kinds of races, and Eternals live on that one particular area. Here's the thing, they were still unable to produce a child. And so even though other Eternals were able to, have children, have life, found love, all those things, well, when it comes to Alar and Suzanne, yeah, they found love. Yeah, they got married thanks to Kronos, but at the same time, they were still unable to have a child. And so you had Alar run to his father, Kronos. Now, I'm not going to sit down and try to dive too deep into Kronos, but when it comes to Kronos, he's a very powerful character. And what he says to his son Alar is that, I can give you a son, but the thing is, I'm not going to give you a son out of wedlock. meaning that you have to marry her. And so we do see Suzanne and also Alar get married. And right after that, well, he does give them a child. And so when it comes to this child, it's a great achievement for Suzanne and Alar. And you have Alar say, I want to name this child Thanos. And so this is where Thanos was conceived, but at the same time, it leads to his birth. And we already know it went downhill from there because Thanos is pure evil. And so after he lived for a few years, bam, he killed off his mother. And once she was able to come back to life on Earth, thanks to the Great Machine, she was also excluded, locked away forever, because let's not forget, she was also exiled as well. And so with her being exiled, they're like, oh hey, you're finally here, so it's time for your punishment and you're going to be locked away. Goodbye. Now when it came to Alar, he was still alive, and he was upset with Kronos, because Kronos was the one that gave him Thanos, because they could not conceive a child. And so thanks to Kronos, he was able to give them a child, except he gave them an evil child. Now you could say, hey, this is Kronos just being a you-know-what, because again, most of the Eternals did not like the idea of Eternals having, fun time and having children. And so with that being said, this could be Kronos getting back at his own son in his own evil kind of way. Either way, he does tell Alar, your son will always be an enemy of the Eternals. And so every single time he pops up and the Eternal sees him, they are going to fight him and act like he is a pure enemy that should be killed off, and that is final. But right after that, when you have Alar try to do some more work to hopefully fix his mistakes, unfortunately, Thanos found him. And Thanos said, it's time for you to also die, father. And so just like that, Alar is dead. Now we already know that Alar is not really dead forever. Just instead, he will now be revived back on Earth. And once he is woken up, he is confronted by Icarus and Athena. Now, when it comes to these two characters, they are telling him the bad news, like, hey man, listen, your son is evil. You guys done a horrible thing. Your wife, she was resurrected, but she's locked away, and now you are also going to be locked away because you were also exiled for your crimes. But on top of that, you gave birth to Thanos. Not really you, your wife did, but you did help out with the idea of giving birth to Thanos. So thank you for that. You created the most evilest thing in the universe, so you're also excluded. Now, as soon as they do that, he says, please, can I talk to my wife? I know that she was also excluded. And you have Icarus say, no, because she said she does not want to see you at all. Because thanks to you, you seduced her. You gave her a son who is pure evil in this universe. You're like, dang, bro, that's pretty sad. But it only gets worse because apparently his cell, Alar's cell, was made in a certain kind of way. Right now it's pitch black, but every time Thanos kills someone, a small light will appear to show Alar how many people Thanos kills across the universe. And honestly, it doesn't take that long, because as soon as they say that, lights begin to pop up left and right to show how many people Thanos has killed, to the point where the entire room is lit up, to the point where it just destroys the eyes of Alar. And so now he has scars to constantly remind him that he is the reason why Thanos is alive. Okay, so we're going to cover Eternal Celestia. This is a great one-shot story, but just like Thanos Rising, it's really used as a way to kind of give us more information about the Eternals. Because if you're new to Marvel Comics, they've been around for a very long time. And yes, there are many stories out there that could help new readers learn more about the Eternals. But these books right here do a great job of kind of taking older content and cutting it down in a smaller version to make it easier for new readers to get into the Eternals. But at the same time, it's also adding in more information about the Eternals that fit in perfectly with everything else we already knew about them. But when it comes to Eternals Celestia, this story is really more about the idea of the bond between the Celestials and also the Eternals. Because remember, the Celestials were the one who made the Eternals and then told them, hey, here's your goal, protect the Earth, but also protect the human race. And then they left, and that was it. But then you had some Eternals that had a closer bond to the Celestials more than other Eternals did. And so getting into today's storyline, we pick up in Celestia, the city of the star gods. Now, when it comes to Celestia, this is where you had Celestials go when they came down to Earth. Matter of fact, we see a throne right now, and we pick up a character known as Ajax who is sitting on the throne. Now, the throne is not made for her. The throne is made for a Celestial. And guys, Celestials are huge. So right now, Ajax is sitting on the throne, and she's barely a speck on the throne. Either way, when it comes to Ajax, she belongs to a group of Eternals that have one particular ability, which is that they are able to communicate with the Celestials, and that was a huge achievement. The problem is though, this is the present day. The Celestials have not been down to Earth in a very long time to talk to the Eternals. And so right now, she's beginning to lose her trust and her belief into the Celestials, because when she was able to communicate with them, she was doing their work. Because let's not forget, the Celestials made the Eternals to protect the Earth, but to also protect the human race. But with her no longer being able to talk to one or even see one, she believes that right now, the gods, her gods, have forgotten about her, and she's wondering what to do next. But then you have Ajax being confronted by another Eternal known as Makari. Now, when it comes to Makari, she's just like Ajax. She had the ability to communicate with Celestials. The problem was though, Ajax was the first to lose that ability. Makari was later on down the road, and that led to a problem between the two ladies, because Ajax, well, she was jealous that Makari still had the ability to communicate with the Celestials, but now Makari cannot either. And so it seems like the two ladies are going to begin the process of trying to fix their relationship. Either way, when it comes to Makari and also Ajax, they're wondering what to do, because right now they're both trying to find different ways to hopefully regain the ability to communicate with Celestials, to figure out what is next for the Eternals to do. We already know when it came to Celestials, they left the Earth and said, bye, peace, see y'all later, never again, and that was it. But for Ajax and Makari, they're still holding on to hope the Celestial will come back and tell them what is next for the Eternals. Now, this is where you have Ajax say, you know what? Let's go over to the new base that belongs to the Avengers. Because right now at this point in Marvel Comics, the Avengers are living inside a Celestial, the first host. And now they're saying, let's go there and let's see we're able to figure out if there's any clues left for us to use as a way to figure out what is next for us, the Eternals, but also for Celestials as well. So we have to jump back 1 million years ago. Now, when we do, we get confirmation that, yeah, Ajax was one of the few Eternals that had the ability to communicate with a Celestial. And so right now, you have her talking to one and just getting some work from the Celestial. Now, while she is talking to this one particular Celestial, well, then she is confronted by the Avengers, because in recent years Marvel said, hey, there was a group of characters that came together and made the first group of Avengers 1 million BCE. Yeah, you heard that right. But right now they're very upset with what they're seeing, which is Ajax right now talking to a Celestial. But back in the present day, we see Ajax and also Makari walking over to the base of the Avengers. Now, while they're walking there, you then have Ajax say, I feel like this is a test. And what she means by that, see, when it comes to the group of Eternals that have the ability to communicate with Celestials, they all have their own ways. When it comes to Ajax, though, she uses the old ways. When it comes to Makari, she uses the new ways. And so what Ajax is saying right now is that maybe when it comes to the Eternals, they want us to find a different way to be able to communicate with them. And so she believes their current situation is really more of a test. But getting back over to the battle between Ajax versus the Avengers of 1 million BCE, this is where we kind of find out that she was actually assigned by the Celestials to figure out what to do with the Avengers. Because right now the Celestials are saying, hey, should we kill them off or leave them alone? And so with that being said, she was assigned to go figure that out. And so she found the Avengers, except when she did, unfortunately, it led to a battle. Because when she tried to introduce herself, they were not trying to hear her at all. They're like, nope. You gotta go. Let's go ahead and kill her off. And so it led to a battle. Now, at first, when it came to the battle, it was okay for her because she was fighting against Iron Fist, Black Panther. But then she was fighting against other characters like Odin or the Phoenix or Starbrand, more powerful characters. Now, unfortunately, at the end of the battle, she died. Now, here's the thing, because when it comes to Eternals, even if they do die, they come right back to life again thanks to the Great Machine. But this section right here does give us more information that we need to know about. And that is, when it comes to Eternals, you would believe that they should remember everything about their entire life. But unfortunately, that is not true. Apparently, sometimes the Great Machine will take away things from their memories. And so when it comes to Ajax, she does not remember this fight against the Avengers from 1 million BCE. But here's the thing, the memories you lost, they are stored in a computer, like a file or like a book, that you are able to go read and study that moment of yourself. And so even though she does not remember that moment, she has studied that moment. And so it tells her what happened to her at the end of her battle against the Avengers of BCE. Now, once she was brought back to life, it led to her kind of discussing what she thinks about the Avengers to the Celestials. And she said that when it comes to the Avengers of 1 million BCE, she feels like they should be left alone. That even though they do go on some crazy missions, at least they're still trying to protect the Earth, trying to protect the human race. And so with her fighting against them, she realized they are good people and they deserve to live. And she tells Celestials, stand down. Do not go after them at all. And when it came to the Celestials, they said, okay, fine. If you believe that, we'll leave them alone for now, and backed off. But back in the present day, when you have our two characters arrive at the base of the Avengers, well, this is where Ajax gets very angry. And the reason why, because she just found out that the Avengers had taken the body of the first host of Celestials and turned it into a secret base. They are living inside the body of a Celestial. And so right now, for Ajax, that is not okay, because she looks at Celestials as her gods, her makers, her creators. And so she is very upset about the idea of what the Avengers have done. Now, you have Ghost Rider walk out and say, hey, listen, I have no idea who you are, but it seems like you're very upset about the idea of what we did to the body of the first host. And so you have Ghost Rider say, actually, let me tell you, the first host talked to me, and it told me that this was okay for us to do. Now, Ajax cannot believe that the first host would talk to Ghost Rider, but not talk to her. And so she does use her powers to read his mind. And when she does read his mind, y'all, Ajax gets angry. She's all like, let me get this straight. I have gone for a very long time unable to talk to my gods, but they talk to you? How in the world is that fair? And she is angry. Now you do have Makari being able to calm down Ajax. Now once she's able to calm down Ajax, you then have Makari and Ajax go back to Celestia, the city of the star gods. Now when they do arrive there, well, you then have Ajax say, I made a huge mistake. And that mistake was letting the Avengers live 1 million BCE. And she's right. She did tell the Celestials to leave the Avengers alone because she felt like they were great people. But now she's saying that was a mistake. Because what she is saying is that when it comes to Celestials, even if they are able to talk to you, even if they tell you something, there's actually another hidden message behind the words they have spoken. And so right now she's saying, even though the Celestial told Ghost Rider it was okay for the Avengers to live inside its body, in reality, there is another message. Either way, she's saying, I feel like it's the Celestials trying to tell me I have made a mistake by telling them to let the Avengers live. And so now she's saying the Avengers must go. The present day Avengers, like Steve Rogers and Tony Stark and T'Challa, those Avengers. And so it seems like a war is coming very soon between the Eternals and the Avengers. But this Okay, so to continue our coverage over the latest Eternal series, we pick up with issues number 7, 8, and 9. And this is where we see Thanos take over the Eternals. Yes, you heard that right. Now we have to remember that in our last video, the Eternals found out a dark secret about how they're brought back to life thanks to the Great Machine. Now remember, the Great Machine is technically Earth. It is connected to the Earth. But the dark secret was that when it comes to the Eternals, when they are brought back to life, a human has to die. And so when they found out about that, their goal was to change the way of how the machine actually works, so that humans will not die every single time one of them comes back to life. With that being said, they told their leader, Zoraz. Now when it comes to Zoraz, he said, okay, you know what? Let me do this right here. Let me meet with the other Eternals across the world in the Unimind, and we'll try to figure out what is the best next step for us to do, if we can actually change the Great Machine. Now, when it comes to our main group of Eternals, they realize that even if Zoraz goes into the Unimind to talk to the other Eternals, they're going to lose that battle. And so their goal is to figure out a different way to hopefully save the lives of the humans. And so what our main group of Eternals did, they went to the home of the Deviants. Now remember, the Deviants are technically the worst enemies of the Eternals. Not completely, but mostly. And what I mean by that is, you have good Deviants, you have bad Deviants. But most time, the good Deviants turn bad because they change over time into some kind of creatures. Now, of course, that change comes down the road in their life. But sooner or later, Deviants will turn evil, and basically the Eternals are the ones who were made to protect the humans from Deviants. And so right now, they're going to the home of the Deviants to see if there is a way to change the Great Machine to help out humans, Eternals, but also the Deviants as well. And when it comes to the dark secret for the Eternals, when they found out about the idea of humans dying every single time one of them came to life or back to life, it hit Icarus the hardest. And the reason why, because in our first story arc, he had a vision. And with that vision, he saw a future where he was going to mourn the death of a young boy named Toby. But the thing was, he had no idea who Toby was. And so he went out of his way to find Toby and to try to find a way to protect Toby to make sure that Toby never died. Unfortunately, Toby died because once Thanos was able to kill off Icarus, and when Icarus came back to life, Well, Toby died to bring Icarus back to life. Matter of fact, Thanos was not the one who killed off Icarus. It was the Great Machine that had killed off Icarus. Either way, when Icarus died, Toby died. And so when it came to Icarus, the vision he saw came true. He's right now mourning the death of the young boy that he was trying to protect. But then he's confronted by somebody else, and that would be the Jack of Knives. Now, when it comes to the Jack of Knives, he's actually a crime lord eternal, one of the four. But the reason why he's here because he knows what Icarus is about to do with the huge secret of the Eternals, which is tell the parents of Toby why he died. And so when it comes to Jack of Knives, he said, you are not going to do that at all. You are not going to tell that family about what happened to their boy because it's our secret. And right now, we're all trying to find a way to actually handle that secret. But at the same time, they are humans. They have no right to know our dark secret just yet until we're able to figure out what in the world to do with that. But if you try to tell them, I'm telling you right now, I will kill them as soon as you leave. Matter of fact, if you tell anybody, I will kill them. Now, this is Jack of Knives being truthful here. He will kill the parents of Toby if Icarus does tell them the dark secret. And so when he does go and talk to the parents, you have Icarus realize that Jack of Knives is not playing around. And so he does not tell the mother what happened to her boy, the one he had promised that he was going to protect. And so he leaves. And so right now it's Jack of Knives saying, I told you so. And you did the right thing, not telling her our actual secret. Now, we do begin the process of learning how will Thanos become the Prime Eternal. Well, it all starts with him working with Droog. Now, let's not forget, Droog is another Eternal, but he's more kind of like the Loki of the Eternals. He's always up to something. Even right now, with him working with Thanos, this man got plans up his sleeve that he is hoping to use against Thanos. But with that being said, we have to remember, Thanos was dead, but he was brought back to life by Phastos, one of the other Eternals, and he was the first one to realize the dark secret about the Eternals. And so his goal was to use Thanos as a way to kill off the entire Eternals to protect the humans. Because again, every single time an Eternal comes back to life, a human has to die in their place. And so when it came to Phastos, his main goal was to go ahead and kill off all Eternals, but the Great Machine as well, to prevent the death of any more humans down the road. Except he found a way to kind of control Thanos, to say if Thanos tries to betray him, he has a way to kill Thanos off. Unfortunately, when it comes to Phastos, Droog made him forget how to kill off Thanos. And so right now, it's Thanos saying, the body I have is not perfect. I need a better body if I'm going to be able to take over the world or take over the Eternals. Now, here is another problem. And we saw this in one of the one-shots we covered a while back. But one of the one-shots we covered, Thanos is not part of the Great Machine. And the reason why, because when it came to the Eternals, they had a big, huge war about the idea of Eternals having children, because they believed that it's not a good thing to do. On top of that, they also hated the idea of Eternals having kids with other races across the universe. And so with that being said, when it came to the parents of Thanos, they were trying to prove it is okay to have kids if you are an Eternal, except Thanos proves that is a bad idea. But because when it came to Thanos, they were not able to change the mind of the other Eternals to go ahead and add the children into the Great Machine. And so if Thanos dies, he cannot come back to life again with the Great Machine. And so he's saying, I have to find a way to get access to the Great Machine, or to get approved to be added into the Great Machine, so that when I die, I'll be able to come back to life. But at the same time, we still gotta figure out, what did Phastos do to my body to kind of help him control me? And so you have Drew say, your best way to do this is to become the Prime Eternal, the one in charge. Because once you're in charge of the Eternals, then we begin the process of adding you into the Great Machine, so that when you die, you'll come back in a better body. Something else we have to remember is Athena the Eternal, who falls in love with other people who are not Eternals. Now, the reason why I am bringing this up because one of the major plot lines of this story is her and her lover, who is a deviant. And that was a huge problem in our last couple videos. And the reason why, because when it comes to Eternals and Deviants, they're in this endless war. They have to fight against each other. But at the same time, when the Celestials had made the Eternals, they said, your main goal is to protect the human race, but at the same time to make sure the Deviants are under control. Because again, they'll have a normal life at first, but down the road, they'll turn evil, go crazy, and turn into crazy monsters. And so the Eternals were assigned to kill off the Deviants. And so when it comes to Athena, she's falling in love with the enemy. And yes, her lover is normal, but for now, how long will it be until he turns evil and she has to kill him off? But right now, you have her lover showing off a new artwork that he was able to accomplish, where it shows two people coming together as one. Of course, one of the people is Athena and the other is him, showing the two races finally coming together and being one with each other, being a peaceful group. But we have to jump back over to Zuras, the Prime Eternal, the one in charge of all Eternals. And when it comes to Zuras, he's having a meeting with the Unimind. Now this is huge, and the reason why, because at the end of our last video, the group we have been following, the Eternals, they told him the dark secret, say, hey, we just learned that every single time we die, a human dies as a way to bring us back to life. We have to change that when it comes to the Great Machine. But at the end of our last video, it seemed like he really did care a lot. And his goal was to help them change how the Great Machine works. Except when it comes to his meeting with the other members of the Eternals in the Unimind, well, his idea or his opinion on the topic had actually changed. Now, when it comes to the Unimind, you have to remember, this is the area where all Eternals are able to connect their minds together to have a big conversation over different topics, like this one right here. And so when it came to Zuras, yes, at the end of our last video, it did seem like he cared. But now in this video, he's all like, no, listen, they are wrong. And we have to basically kill them off, bring them back to life, but also mind wipe them so that they forget about the dark secret, because this dark secret continues our lives on Earth as a way to protect the Earth, but to protect the humans as well. And so I'm saying kill them off and then mind wipe them before we bring them back to life. Now, while you have the meeting going on, well, Thanos appears. And when Thanos appears, let me tell y'all something. When Thanos appears, Thanos says, this is my time to show the rest of the Eternals that I should be the Prime Eternal. And so it leads into a battle in the Unimind between him and Zuras. Now, let's not forget, in the first story arc, at the very beginning of that story arc, well, Thanos killed Zuras the first time. Now, thanks to the Great Machine, it was able to bring him back to life at the end of the first story arc. But right now, it's Thanos saying, hey, I'm back again, uncle. And let's not forget, I killed you once, I can kill you again. Except this time, what I'm trying to prove to the other Eternals, that I should be the one in charge, not you. I should be the Prime Eternal. And so it does lead into a huge battle between Zuras and also Thanos. Except at the end of the battle, Thanos wins. And now Thanos has become the Prime Eternal. This is where the story gets even crazier, y'all. And so you have Thanos then kill off Droog after becoming the Prime Eternal. And you're probably wondering, why in the world did he do that? Well, the reason why he killed off Droog, because Droog knew what Thanos had in mind as a way to control Thanos. Now, even though Droog was the one who had mind wiped Thanos to basically take away that knowledge of how to control Thanos, Drew made sure to copy that, because Drew's plan was to be the one now to control Thanos. And Thanos says, I know that you copy his mind so that you have a way to control me. So let me help remind you, there is no way, and you know what, that you are going to be the one to control me. And so Thanos grabs his head and just smashes it in the ground and says, you are dead. I'll bring you back to life with the great machine. But just remember that there's no way you'll be able to control Thanos, your new ruler. And so when we jump into the second chapter, we pick up back at the home of the Deviants, where we actually see two Deviants right now, where you have one running away from the other. And the reason why, because when it comes to the smaller Deviant, he's freaking out because the other Deviant has turned evil. This is just another example of how Deviants work in the world of Marvel Comics, where yes, at first they're great, but sooner or later, they are going to turn evil because of how their genetics work. Either way, you have Icarus and Kingo step in. Now, when they step in, they do kill off the evil Deviant. And they expect the good Deviant to be happy about the idea of his life being saved by the Eternals. But right now, he's terrified of them. And they have no idea why. Until you have Phastos walk out and say, you have to realize, even though he was just running from his life from the other Deviant, he still knows that Eternals are people who come after his people to kill them off. And so when they see you, all they see is death. When they see you, they're just terrified. And so even if you save their lives, they're still scared of you. And that hits the core of Icarus, and he flies off to take care of something else. But then you have Phastos ask Kingo to come with him to work on the project to figure out how to deal with Thanos. And so then we see Thanos bring Droog back to life. Now when he does bring Droog back to life, Droog realized that he was mind wiped. So he does not remember what Phastos used to remember of how to control Thanos. And so right now it's Thanos saying, I like you, but don't think that I will let you find a way to control me. Thanos cannot be controlled. And so I had you mind wiped. We are now back at the same level in some areas, which means that now you work for me. And your goal is my goal. And my goal is right now to find a way to give me a brand new body. So get up and let's get to work. And Drew is all like, you know what? He caught me. And you know what? Pretty cool guy. I'm down. Let's do it. Let's make you a brand new body. And so then we jump back over to the land that belongs to the Deviants. With that being said, we actually pick up with Thena and her lover, where her lover is about to reveal his new art piece, the one we saw earlier. With that being said, we also pick up with Corey, another Eternal that fell in love with a Deviant. And here's the thing, he was able to spend time with his lover for 40 years. That is actually very important because most Deviants don't live that long. They turn evil and then they're killed off by an Eternal. And so when it comes to Athena, she's wondering, will her and her lover be able to have their love survive for 40 years? Except they won't, because that is the moment she finds out that her lover is beginning to change. And sooner or later, he'll turn evil, and sooner or later, she will have to kill him off. You then have Icarus pay a visit over to two Deviants, the two best fighter Deviants, and that will be Carcass and also Ransack. And these are the two best fighters when it comes to Deviants. And the reason why Icarus is coming to them, because he wants to learn how to fight like them. Not just like an Eternal, but also like a Deviant. And that is his end goal, to combine the two fighting styles together as one. And their first lesson is to learn how to dodge. And apparently Icarus never learned or never heard about the idea of dodging. We then jump over to Thanos, Demo, and Drew. Now, Demo is new to us, but when it comes to Demo, his end goal is to help Thanos be able to have full connection to the machine. Because with this body that was made by Phastos, this body can only partially connect to the Great Machine. And so right now, their goal is to complete the whole process so they can kill off Thanos and bring him back to life in a brand new body. Except when it comes to Demo's project, it doesn't work at all. And so what Demo say is there has to be something else that Phastos did when it came to him being able to bring you back to life. And unfortunately, that body, the one he made, cannot be completely connected to the Great Machine. If we want answers, we have to go to him right now to see if we're able to dive into his mind, to force him to tell us what he was able to do with your body. And so you have Thanos say, fine, it's time for me to find Phastos. And you have Drew say, I know where he's at. He's with the others who have left the lands of the Eternals and went to the lands of the Deviants. And so now this is Thanos heading there to go get Phastos. We then jump back over to the land of the Deviants. And when we do that, we pick up with Cersei having a dinner meeting with the leader of the Deviants. Now, when it comes to this meeting, it's really more of the two characters trying to begin the process of Eternals and Deviants coming together. But here's the thing, Thena walks in very angry. And the reason why she is so angry because she just found out her lover is going to change. But apparently the process had only begun after he had met with their leader. And so this is Thena saying, it's you. It's your fault. It's your fault for the reason why my lover is beginning to change. And sooner or later, he'll be killed off. And you have the leader of the Deviants say, it's not my fault. It's a well-known thing that happens to all of us. It's a curse. Sooner or later, every single one of us is going to change into a horrible monster. And when it comes to your lover, unfortunately, he is the next one. I cannot give that curse to anybody on my own power. It happens to all of us over time. And so unfortunately, he will turn. But unfortunately, when it comes to Eternals, you guys were coded to kill us off if we go too far. And right now, he will sooner or later go too far and you will have to kill him off. But after that meeting, you then have Cersei go to another meeting where she meets up with the Jack of Knives. And remember, the Jack of Knives was the guy who basically told Icarus, if you tell anybody about our dark secret, I will kill them off, to make sure that secret is never told to the rest of the world. And we kind of find out that he was hired by Cersei because she wanted to make sure that Icarus did not do what she thought he would do, which is tell the parents of Toby what happened to Toby. And so this is her saying, I'm hoping that he does keep our secret long enough until we are able to figure out what to do next. Except then you have Jack of Knives say, oh, by the way, we have a new Prime Eternal, a new leader. And she's wondering, oh, who could that be? And right after she finds out who is the new Prime Eternal, oh man, y'all, once she finds out, she begins to freak out. She's all like, everybody, listen, we got a problem. Zoras is dead again. We also have a new Prime Eternal, and y'all not believe who it is. And as soon as she is about to tell everybody, Thanos appears. He's all like, what's up? I'm here for Phastos. Hand him over now. If you don't, I'm going to wreck everybody in this area. And so when we jump into the final chapter of the storyline, y'all, let me tell y'all, this is Thanos saying, I am here to get what I want. I need Phastos now to explain to me what he did to my body. Because once he's able to figure out what Phastos has done to his body, then Thanos will be fully connected to the machine. And so it's Thanos right now just coming full force, trying to find out where in the world Phastos is at. Now, Thanos did not come alone at all. He brought the Oceanic Watch, And this is a specific group of warriors that stay on the outer area of the land that belong to the Deviants. And so as soon as Thanos told them, hey y'all, listen, we are going to attack the Deviants, they were like, we are down, bro. Let's go ahead and do this. And so you have Thanos and also all these different Eternals helping him fight against our heroes. Now, you do have Thanos find one particular person to torture as a way to get the information that he is looking for. Because when it comes to our heroes, they're trying their best to hide Phaetos from Thanos because they know if Phaetos is grabbed by Thanos, Thanos will win. And so they're trying to hide him right now. But the person Thanos finds is actually the lover that belongs to Athena. And this is very important because when he does find him, he's all like, oh, I see, you built a beautiful artwork. It would be a shame for somebody to come by and just ruin it, like, I don't know, me. And so right now, you have Thanos go out of his way to grab the lover of Athena, but to also destroy the artwork that he had built. Now, this is where things get a tad bit sad, y'all, because when she does appear, she's all like, let him go. But Thanos says, no, I'm going to kill him unless you tell me where Phaetos is at. But because this is her lover, somebody she cares so much for, she goes ahead and tells Thanos, where is Phaetos? But this gets even worse because Thanos all like, okay, you know what? Thank you for telling me, but I want to go ahead and kill off your boyfriend. But then he realized, oh, actually, I'm not going to kill your boyfriend off. And here is the reason why. Because I just figured out he's dying. Or actually, he's turning evil. And you know what that means. Sooner or later, you are going to have to be the one to kill him off because he is turning evil. And matter of fact, he only has a few more minutes before he turns evil. And so really, I like the idea of torturing you in a different kind of way by making you kill off your own lover. And matter of fact, Thanos walks away. But what Thanos says is true because right after he leaves, the lover of Athena does turn into an evil version of a deviant. And when it happens, she has no choice but to go ahead and kill off the man that she loves. Now, right before Thanos is able to get his hands on Phaetos, you have Phaetos tell Kingo, listen very carefully. There's no point of us running because sooner or later, he will just find us again and kill more innocent people to get to me. So listen very carefully. If we're going to stop Thanos, we have to also learn the dark secret of the Deviants. And so we're left to wonder, wait a second, what is the dark secret for the Deviants? We already know the one for the Eternals, but what is the big one for the Deviants? And so Kinko realized what is about to happen here. That Phaetos is going to sacrifice himself to give his friends more time to find a way to stop Thanos. And so once you have Phaetos face Thanos, Thanos kills him off just like that. But now, with him being dead, Thanos can bring him back to life with the Great Machine, but then use the new Ori Phaetos as a way to figure out what is wrong with Thanos' body. Either way, our heroes have no choice but to go ahead and surrender and get the heck out of there. But luckily for them, Thanos says, I have to go for the time being. And so he also leaves. Now you do have our heroes regroup, and when they do regroup, it is our heroes going over the idea of what Phaetos had told Kingo by basically saying they have to learn the dark secrets of the Deviants. Now there is another reason why, because when it comes to Thanos, he's not just part Eternal, he's also part Deviant. And so apparently what Phaetos did to Thanos' body has to do with the idea of the dark secrets of the Deviant side. And so once our heroes are able to fully understand what that is, they could have a way to actually defeat Thanos. So you have our heroes go over to Celestia, the star city of the gods. This is really important because when they do go, they are confronted by Ajax and Makari. Now, when it comes to Celestia, the star city of the gods, this is where the Celestials will go and sit on a throne and talk to a group of Eternals who have the ability to communicate with them. Now, the reason why they came here because they're hoping that Ajax and Makari, the only two people here right now who have the ability to talk to Celestials, might know the dark secret of the Deviants. But we cannot forget what happened in the one-shot we covered that dealt with Ajax and Makari, because these two Eternals found out the Avengers are living inside the first host, the first Celestial, as a secret base, and it bothered her a lot. But at the same time though, she also heard that Ghost Rider was able to communicate with a Celestial, something that her and Makari have not done in a very, very long time. And so with that being said, she was very angry, but she felt like there was a hidden message when she read Ghost Rider's mind. And she feels like the Celestials are telling her, Ajax, to go after the Avengers, to kill them off. And the reason why, because let's not forget, she met the Avengers, the first ones, back in 1 million BCE, and she fought against them, but she believed the Avengers were good. But now in the present day, she feels like the Avengers are bad. And so this is her saying, listen, if we want to get our dark secret for the Deviants, we have to go to the body of the first host and take out the Avengers. They are the only thing standing in our way to hopefully defeat Thanos. And this What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to cover the Eternals Heretic. This book is important for one particular reason, and that reasoning is because it gives us the origin of Uranus. Now, you would think, okay, this has to be a newer character. He's not. Matter of fact, this is a character that's been around since 1980. And what if number 24? Again, back in 1980. So with that book being his only appearance ever in Marvel Comics, Marvel felt like it would be a good idea to give him an updated origin story, or to retell his origin in a newer book to help new readers understand who the character actually is. Now, as we go through this book, something else you have to remember, but at this point in Marvel Comics, Thanos is the prime Eternal. He's the one in charge right now, and that is very huge. But now he is going to meet Uranus and learn the origin of Uranus, but get something very powerful from him as well. And speaking of the idea of Thanos being the prime Eternal, of course, if you try to go against him, you're gonna get excluded. Now remember, when it comes to the excluded, it's technically a term used as a way to say you are locked away forever if you are an Eternal that breaks a rule, that breaks a law. And so when it comes to Thanos, a whole lot more people are becoming excluded. They're being locked away because they're trying to stand against him, or they're trying to not stand with him at all and trying to ignore him. And Thanos doesn't like that at all. So of course you become excluded. And when it comes to the opening pages of this book, we're seeing Droog's father being locked away in the excluded cell. And when that happens, Droog does not care at all, which honestly makes sense because when it comes to Droog, the only person he cares about is himself. And so even when he sees his father being thrown into a cell, he's kind of like, well, that sucks. I'm only looking after myself. And after that, you then have Droog say that Thanos reminds him of Uranus. Matter of fact, you have Droog tell us the family tree when it comes to Uranus. And what I mean by that, for Droog, Uranus is his grandfather. And when it comes to Thanos, it'll be his grand uncle. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Thanos, he never met Uranus, and you would think that he has, but he hasn't. And so it's Thanos showing us that the only thing he heard about Uranus was just rumors. So for example, he believed that Uranus has been killed off, was brought back to life, then excluded. But then you have Drew say, no, he was never killed. He was just locked away. Now, this is where we are going to learn, why was he locked away for? What did he do? But on top of that, why did they not kill him off for his mistakes? Now, let me tell you, as soon as Thanos meets Uranus, as soon as they meet, you have Uranus look at Thanos as disappointment. Like, oh, so you're Thanos. You're the one I heard that killed off half the universe. Pretty sad. It's kind of like, wait a second. You're going to tell Thanos that what he did many years ago is sad, but what you did is not even on his level. Now, technically, you could be more powerful than Thanos, but at the same time, your achievements are completely different. But for Uranus, who cares? Now, when it comes to Thanos, he's like, you know what? I want to kill you, but at the same time, I'm not going to kill you. And for Uranus, he believes that Thanos is scared to release him. But for Thanos, it's more of, no, because I know what you want. You want to be released, but at the same time, you can't be released. And so this is your torture. You've been here for so many years that you're trying your best to trick people to release you. But unfortunately, you'll never be released. Now, when it comes to Thanos and Drew, they were about to leave, except you didn't have Thanos as Uranus. Tell me your story. And the reason why, because he already knows if Thanos goes to Drew is going to give Thanos a different story about the origin of Uranus. So if you want to learn the actual origin, why not get it from the actual source? And so to begin the origin of Uranus, we have to jump back 600,000 years ago. And there is a very good reason why. Because it's Uranus saying, I want you to understand what led me down the path I went on. And it all began when I had to go after a certain kind of deviant. Now remember, when it comes to deviants, they were also made by celestials as well, alongside with the Eternals. The problems with deviants that deviants are strange looking creatures, except they still act normal to a certain point, where they turn evil, turn into monsters, they turn crazy, and begin to attack their own or any other beings in their way. And that was a huge problem for the deviants. And so usually you'll have Eternals kill off those deviants who had gone bad. And so when it came to Uranus, at the very beginning of his origin story, he's showing us going after a deviant that went too far, that turned bad. Now, after doing that, the other deviants who were trying to get away from that one particular deviant, they were very happy to see Uranus, but he was not happy to see them, because he realized that when it comes to deviants, they could reproduce, but at the same time, they will always keep turning bad, no matter what, and be an endless cycle of the Eternals going after deviants over and over again. And so he felt like the best way to break that cycle is to go ahead and kill off all deviants across the board. But we have to skip back over to the present day for one good reason. And that reason is because Uranus says, I heard, Thanos, that you want to become part of the Great Machine. Now remember, the Great Machine is technically built into the Earth. It helps keep the Earth alive, but at the same time, it's also the way the Eternals are able to come back to life. And the problem is, Thanos is not completely connected to the Great Machine for so many different reasons. One, because when he was born, well, of course, he was a child of two Eternals. And it was banned for Eternals to have children to be added into the Great Machine. But at the same time, when it came to Thanos, he died. But he was brought back to life by another character known as Phastos. And when Phastos brought him back to life, well, he made his body in a unique kind of way. And so with that way, unfortunately, Thanos is unable to be completely connected to the Great Machine. When it comes to Uranus, he says, I'm telling you now, You do not want to be part of the great machine, because if you do, and you are the prime eternal, you're going to hold a whole lot more responsibilities. But then you have Reno say, also, I want to tell you more of my story. It all began before we even had a prime eternal. We only had 3 of us in charge, me and my 2 brothers. And so when we jump back into the origin of Uranos, we see him having a meeting with his 2 brothers, Kronos and Oceanus. Now, these 2 brothers are going to be the reason why Uranos is locked up. And what I mean by that, when it came to Uranos, he came to his brothers and said, why not go ahead and kill off all deviants across the board? We can finally break that cycle. But then he'll go even farther and say, why not go ahead and kill off all beings that are not eternals off the board to help us for sure to protect the earth? When it comes to his brothers, they're like, no, you are talking about mass murder. We were not code by the eternals to do that. So why would you do that? And then you have Uranos say, oh, by the way, I have powerful weapons that could make my job, my idea, go by so easy. Literally, it will be so easy to go to different cities in a matter of seconds. That entire town of deviants will be dead. But again, his 2 brothers do not agree at all. And so for Uranos, his idea is to show them what he had made and what he could do with his powerful weapon when he goes to each towns that belong to deviants. And we see him. He goes to the deviants' capital. And when he arrives, bam, just like that, he releases his weapon that was able to wipe out all deviants in this area. And then after doing that, he then told his people, begin the process of getting rid of all deviants across the board. And that is very important, because when it came to the 3 brothers, they each had their own kind of group of eternals. And so it led to a war. Uranos and his people fighting against his 2 brothers and their people. And that led to him being locked up. Now, before he got locked up, there were a few more things that actually happened. And so to continue our coverage over the origin of Uranos, this is where we learn why wasn't he killed off for? Or why wasn't he killed off but then excluded? By the way, when it comes to Uranos, he is the first eternal ever to be excluded. The first. And that was huge. But either way, why wasn't he not killed off? And we kind of find out the reason why, because he knows all the dark secrets of the great machine. And that is very important. And the reason why, because apparently if he dies, he told the great machine, when you bring me back to life with a new body, a new mind, make sure you mind wipe me so that the dark secrets could be lost forever. And that could ruin the Eternals down the road. And so he tells his 2 brothers, hey, I know all the secrets, but unfortunately, if you kill me off, they're lost forever. And so they're wondering what to do here, because again, they want to know what he learned about the great machine, but at the same time, they're afraid to let him go. But at the same time, they're wondering, hey, you know what? Maybe it's best to go ahead and kill him off. He also says he has a way to shut down the great machine. And that is huge, because if he does that, it's not just, oh, the Eternals lost their way to come back to life. No, the great machine is built inside the earth. It helps keep the earth alive. If the great machine dies, so does the earth. And so apparently, after his 2 brothers had learned that, they tried to go into his mind to pull out everything he knows about the great machine. But he was able to fight them in his mind to the point where they got exhausted. They gave up and went ahead and just locked him away, but hoping that one day, sooner or later, they'll learn everything that he knew about the great machine. But the ending of this book makes things even crazier, because then you have Uranus give Thanos the weapon, or the key to the weapon that will give Thanos the ability to kill off the Earth just like that. Because again, if the great machine dies, so does the Earth. Now, you have Thanos say, why in the world will you trust me with this item for? And you have Uranus say, because when I look at you, I finally see someone in my family tree that is not a disappointment. But as Thanos leaves, Thanos says at first, goodbye, great uncle. But then he says, no, not great uncle. I realize that you are my grandfather. And then he walks out. And that is the end for today's comic book video. So please, so we're going to wrap up our coverage over the Eternals, and we pick up with issues number 10, 11, and 12. And when it comes to these three final issues, they're going to be used as a way to wrap everything up when it comes to this series, but lead us perfectly into the Axe Judgment Day crossover event that we are going to cover very soon. And when it comes to the last three issues, there are a few things you need to remember before we jump into the final story arc. So, for example, you have to remember that Thanos is the prime Eternal. He's basically in charge of all Eternals across the board. Number two, when it comes to Thanos, he wants to be part of the Great Machine. The problem is, though, his body is not perfectly correct, or perfectly able to join the Great Machine. Now, if you're wondering what is the Great Machine, the Great Machine is built inside the Earth. Technically, it is the Earth. And so if the Great Machine dies, well, the Earth dies. But with that being said, when it comes to Thanos, he wants to be part of the Great Machine, like all Eternals are. Because when they die, the Great Machine is able to bring you back to life. Now, we also learned a dark secret about the Eternals, that when it comes to the Eternals, when they die, the Great Machine is able to bring them back to life, except when the Great Machine does that, a human has to die as a way to bring the Eternals back to life. Now, that secret right there is very important for other reasons, but I did want to mention it just in case, for future books down the road. But when it comes to Thanos, the reason why he's unable to join the Great Machine, because when he was brought back to life by Phaetos did something different with the body of Thanos. And so only half of Thanos' body is able to become part of the Great Machine. The other half is not. And that is the big question. Now, right before Phaetos was taken by Thanos, Phaetos told the good Eternals what they had to do if they want to actually stop Thanos. They also have to find out the dark secret about the Deviants. And when it comes to the Deviants, remember, the Deviants are really more of the main enemies for the Eternals. When the Celestials came to Earth, they made two groups, the Eternals and the Deviants. Now, when it comes to Deviants, at first, they're great people, but the problem is the way they were coded. So later on in their lives, something changed about them. When they turn to monsters, they go crazy and they have to be killed. And of course, that is when you have an Eternal come in and actually kill off the bad Deviants. But getting back to the main point, when it comes to a way to stop Thanos, the Eternals must also figure out the dark secret about the Deviants, because once they do that, they'll be able to stop Thanos. Now, when it comes to the Eternals, they believe the best way to actually figure that out is to go to the base of the Avengers. Now, the reason why you have the Eternals going over to the base of the Avengers is because right now, currently, the Avengers are living inside a celestial body. Matter of fact, the first host. But when it comes to the Eternals, the best way to learn the dark secret of the Deviants is to go to the creator, or one of the creators, which is the Celestials. What the first host is currently on Earth right now, just dead, and you have the Avengers living inside the dead body of the first host. But they're hoping that they'll be able to find a way to communicate with the first host and to hopefully learn the dark secret of the Deviants. Now, when we jump into today's storyline, we kind of find out that there was a meeting called. And when it came to this meeting, it was really more Cersei saying she wants to meet up with Namor. Now for Iron Man, that seems very strange. Matter of fact, he's kind of worried or concerned about the Eternals. And the reason why, because most recently, when it came to the Eternals, when the Great Machine was going crazy, well, the Earth began to somewhat fall apart. Now, the Avengers did help out, but the only thing they did was protecting innocent people while the Eternals try to fix the Great Machine. But when that all happened, well, when it came to the Eternals, all they told Tony Stark was the Great Machine went crazy, that's it, we fixed it, moving on. But in reality, so much more happened. Matter of fact, the Avengers have no idea that Thanos is on Earth right now, but on top of that, Thanos is the prime Eternal. And so for Iron Man, he does find it very weird that when it comes to Cersei, she wants to call a meeting. When it comes to her meeting, she only invited one person, and that is Namor. And for Namor, it's more of, I don't mind. I mean, hey, let me go ahead and see what she wants, and maybe I'll get some fun time out of her. And so while you have Namor and Cersei go on with their meeting, and matter of fact, it's not even a meeting, it's more the two characters saying, hey, I like you, you like me, we should go have some fun in my other room over here, let's go. You have the Avengers just go on with their business. Now, unfortunately, the Avengers nor Namor realized that when it came to Cersei, she dropped an earring, but not really an earring. It's some kind of traveling pod that basically shrinks down people to a small size, easy to carry. And so when it came to her earring, it was a traveling pod. And inside the traveling pod, you have Eternals that was shrunk down. Now, once they leave the shrinking pod, they'll just grow back to regular size. But their main goal is to sneak around the base of the Avengers to hopefully find the mind of the Celestial, to hopefully figure out what is the dark secret of the Deviants. And so we jump over to Thanos and also Drew, who is torturing Phaetos. Now remember, Phaetos was the person that brought Thanos back to life. The problem is Thanos was brought back to life only halfway through, because with him trying to connect to the Great Machine, the problem is only half of him is able to connect to the Great Machine, which means that there's something wrong with the other half of his body. But the question is what? And with Phaetos being the one that had brought Thanos back to life by making him a brand new body, that means Phaetos would know what is wrong with Thanos' body. Now, when it comes to Thanos, he does torture Phaetos so that he can learn what's wrong with his body. But with Phaetos, he's like, no, I'm not going to tell you anything at all, because if I do, it will make you more powerful. Now, when it comes to Thanos, he says, oh, you're going to tell me, because if you don't, I will begin the process of destroying cities left and right, just right here, with you and I in this room. And what he means by that, because back in the one shot called The Eternals Heretic, Thanos met his grandfather, Uranos. And when it came to Uranos, he gave Thanos access to so many different kinds of weapons. And so for Thanos, he's saying, listen, if you don't tell me what I want to know, all I have to do is hit this button. When I do, it's going to be over for a random city across the earth. So what are you going to do? And when it comes to Phaetos, he's like, okay, I have to do it, because when it comes to Eternals, our main goal is to protect the humans. And so he tells Thanos, unfortunately, I don't know why you were not able to become completely part of the Great Machine. And he says, I realize only half of you is eternal. The other half is something else, and I have no idea what. But I do realize that two people will know that actual secret, and that would be your parents. Now, let's not forget, we also learned in a previous video, when it came to the parents of Thanos, they both have been locked away. And so this is Thanos saying, it's about time for me to pay a visit to my mother and father to hopefully learn what dark secret they have about me. And when we jump back over to the Eternals, you have them sneaking around the base of the Avengers. Now, while they're doing that, this is the most perfect time to explain one of the Eternals and her hatred towards the Avengers, and that would be Ajax. See, we learned that Ajax was somebody who had the ability to communicate with Celestials, their creators. The problem was she had lost that ability, and on top of that, the Celestials have not been down to Earth to talk to the Eternals in a very long time. And for Ajax, that really did bother her. When it comes to her hatred towards the Avengers, that was just the starting point, because when it came to the Avengers, Ghost Rider was able to talk to the first host before he had died, and the Avengers had moved inside his body to live there. And so once Ajax had learned that Ghost Rider, a demonic person, was able to communicate with the Celestials, well, she got very upset about that. And she believes that this is a lesson from them, saying that you were wrong, because back in 1 million BCE, she fought the Avengers of the past. And when she fought them, she said they're great people, and I feel like the Avengers should be left alone. But because when it came to Ghost Rider, who was able to communicate with a Celestial, she now feels like the Celestials are telling her, no, the Avengers are not good, the Avengers are bad, and they have to be killed off sooner or later. And that hatred is going to be very important for this storyline. But getting back over to Thanos, we see him now torturing his parents to hopefully learn the dark secret about him from them. Now, we already know, well, we know part of his secret, that when it came to his parents, they weren't able to conceive a child. And so Alar, his father, had to talk to his father, Kronos, to kind of help with the idea of giving them a child, which was Thanos. Now, we have no idea what Kronos did when it came to making Thanos, but when he did, well, there were some problems. And with this story, we're going to learn what are those actual problems. And so for Thanos, he's all like, you will have to tell me sooner or later. There's no way that you are able to take all different kinds of torture. But unfortunately, they can. Now, when it comes to his parents, he tries to use the same thing he did on Phaetos, which is, hey, listen, if you don't tell me, I'll hit this button and a random city on the earth will die just like that. But when it comes to his parents, they don't care, because they realize for the greater good of the universe, if Thanos is unable to learn his actual origin, then everything is going to be okay and better for the entire universe. And so with that, it ticks off Thanos so much, he presses the button. And when he does, bam, a random city is about to be destroyed. And as soon as Thanos pressed that button, well, it did alert Icarus and Athena. And when it comes to Thanos, the button he pressed, what it did was it basically caused a random kind of natural disaster. And that is what he's able to do right now as a way to destroy different places across the earth. Either way, as soon as he pressed that button, you had Icarus and Athena leave. Now, they were on the outside of the Avengers base as a lookout, but again, they got word on what Thanos did, so they had to leave to go handle that problem. Now, getting back over to the Eternals, who are right now in the base of the Avengers, the body of the first host, Celestial, well, they're able to find his mind, the first host. Now, like I said earlier, the first host is dead. He's been dead for a while, but they're still able to talk to his ghost or talk to the pieces of him that are still left behind inside his body. And they're hoping that there is just enough as a way for them to talk to him and to hopefully figure out the dark secret of the Deviants. Except when they begin the process of trying to talk to the first host, well, that is when the Avengers are alerted that their base has been invaded by the Eternals. And this is going to lead into the Avengers fighting against the Eternals. And so when we jump into the 11th issue of this series, we pick up with the Avengers trying to figure out what is happening inside their base. They're running to the area where the Eternals are at, because that is where the alarms are going off at. Except when they try to get closer, well, they are confronted by Kingo. Now remember, Kingo is one of the many Eternals, but he's dressed up as somebody else, pretending to be some kind of powerful person across the universe or across dimensions as a way to scare the Avengers, but at the same time keep them busy long enough so that Ajax is able to talk to the first host and figure out what is the big secret about the Deviants. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, the Avengers are not buying anything Kingo is trying to do here. And so they're wondering, what in the world is this man doing? Why is he dressed differently? What in the world is he talking about? And the second chapter also reminds us that when it comes to Icarus and also Athena, they're trying to find the best way to save this random city that Thanos is about to destroy. Oh, I also want to say the Forgotten One is there as well, but he doesn't do much. Either way, you do have our heroes trying to figure out what in the world can they do to protect this actual city. But we also see in this chapter that Thanos is very angry about the idea that his parents are not going to tell him anything about his origin. And so he's wondering, what in the world can he do to make them talk? He's actually wondering if there is any way possible to actually make them talk. But then he says, oh, there could be one way to make them talk. And when it comes to the Eternals, who are trying to find the best way to save the people of this town that Thanos has selected to actually destroy, what they're going to do is use a device that Athena has that is just going to move the city over. Literally, it's going to be in a bubble. That bubble is going to float somewhere else, then drop the city far away from Thanos' plan, because what he's going to do was cause a lava explosion to come from underneath the ground to, of course, destroy the entire city. And so as soon as our heroes are able to put the town in a huge bubble and just move it over, then you had the explosion. But luckily, they had just moved the entire town over somewhere else, so nobody died. So that problem right there has been handled. But getting back over to the Avengers, who are dealing with Kingo and all his crazy nonsense, what they actually do is just go ahead and take him down, because they realize that one, he's not some crazy powerful warrior from somewhere else in the universe. He's just trying to distract them long enough so his fellow Eternals are able to pull off their master plan. And so you have the Avengers just go ahead and deal with Kingo. But getting back over to Ajax, we see her getting very upset about the idea that the first host is still not even talking to her, even though she's talking to, well, the ghost of the first host. And that is so crazy. And so for her, she's saying, I don't get it. You'll talk to the Avengers, but not to us, your best creations, the ones who have been basically doing everything you wanted us to do, and you would not talk to us. And so for Ajax, her main goal is to torture the ghost of the first host, because it's just a ghost. What can it do to her? But on top of that, she said we have no choice. We have to learn the big secret about the Deviants. But getting back over to Thanos, you have Thanos and Droog going inside the mind of Alar, the father of Thanos. Now, when it came to Alar, let's not forget, he told Thanos, I will never tell you the big secret about your origin. And he was very serious about that. And so Thanos and Droog went inside the mind of Alar, except when they did, Alar still believed that his mind is strong enough to keep Thanos and Droog out. Except you have Thanos say, no, because I am so experienced when it comes to the astral plane. I know how to play with your mind, torture your mind, just long enough to give me the ability to access what I'm looking for. And so he technically did create a hole in the mind of Alar to go deeper into the mind of Alar to finally learn the big secret. But getting back over to the Avengers, they are now confronted by the rest of the Eternals. And you have the rest of the Eternals say, we have to make sure the Avengers are kept busy long enough so that Ajax is able to finally learn what is the big secret about the Deviants. And so we do get a few pages of the Avengers fighting against the Eternals. Now, while they're battling, Ajax is still torturing the ghosts, or what remains of the first host. And so while you have our two teams fighting against each other, well, Ajax was able to finally learn the big secret from the first host. And that ends the 11th issue of this series. And so we get into the final chapter of this story. Now, let me tell y'all something. I really did enjoy the final chapter a lot. And what I mean by that, when it comes to the final chapter of this series, well, you have the Avengers fighting against the Eternals. And while you have both sides fighting against one another, well, you have Namor just call in and say, hey, don't worry, I got one of them right now, and there's no way that she'll be a problem. And he's talking about Cersei. And the reason why Cersei is not going to be a problem because her and Namor are getting their freak on. So while you have these two teams fighting against each other, Namor is all like, hey, listen, I'm busy my own self right now with her in his hot tub. And I'm like, yeah, that would be a Namor move actually. But getting back over to Ajax, she finally does learn the big dark secret about the Deviants. And this is where things get a tad bit crazy. See, when it comes to the Deviants, well, we believe that they weren't that important, that they were a failure in creation when it came to the Celestials. And the Eternals' main goal was to make sure the Deviants don't take over the world. And if the Deviants turn into their horrible selves, go ahead and kill them off. Except we kind of find out that is not completely true at all. We kind of find out that apparently the Deviants are really important. They are probably the most important thing out of the whole entire system the Celestials have built for the Earth. So let me explain why the Deviants are so important. See, 4 billion years ago, you had something called necrofluids be released into the Earth. Now, when it came to the necrofluids, well, they would change anything it actually touched. Now, it also became part of the ecosystem as well. This is where things get crazier and where the Deviants come in. Because when it comes to Deviants, they were made by Celestials as well, but they were made in a way to kind of change with the necrofluids. And so if a Deviant would come in contact with necrofluids, they could change or possibly die. Now, the ones who die are not important. It's the ones who survive after becoming in contact with necrofluids. And the reason why? Because they were able to create other lines of life on Earth. And that is going to be very, very important because there is a certain race of humans that are attached to the Deviants, not to the Eternals. And that is very, very huge. And the question is now, what is that race? Because if the Deviants are able to create different kind of races across the world because of their contact with necrofluids, they are really the leaders of the Earth, leading the Earth into an age of marvels. But getting back over to Thanos, this is where we also learn the secret origin of Thanos, which honestly, not a huge secret, but now he knows. See, when it comes to Thanos, the reason why he is unable to become completely part of the Great Machine is because when it came to his parents, let's not forget, once again, they were unable to conceive a child. And so Alar asked his father Kronos to help him create a child, which he did, except when it came to Thanos, he used 2 kinds of DNAs, the Eternals and the Deviants. So when it comes to Thanos, he's half of each, which explains why he is unable to actually join the Great Machine. Now here's the thing, because when it came to Alar, he tried to make sure that Thanos could still become part of the Great Machine, but apparently he is unable to. And when it came to Phaetos, when he helped bring Thanos back to life in his new body, he added something else into Thanos that's not deviant nor eternal. And the question is what? But either way, what Phaetos used had basically blocked Thanos being able to become part of the Great Machine. But to begin the process of winding everything down, we jump back over to the Avengers and the Eternals. Now, they stop fighting against one another because you have Cersei tell both sides, we have to stop and we have to work together. Because right now Thanos is getting ready to destroy the entire planet. Because he found out his big, huge origin, he feels like, you know what? What's the point of being here? Let's go ahead and destroy the entire Earth, which he can do thanks to Uranus. Because again, Uranus gave Thanos the keys to the Great Machine to use a weapon that is able to shut down the Great Machine, which means destroy the entire Earth. And so you have our two heroes begin to work together to go after Thanos. Now, the Avengers are very ticked off because, again, they had no idea that two things. One, Thanos was on Earth, but two, Thanos is the Prime Eternal. No one knew that at all when it came to the Avengers. Either way, they agreed to work together and to hopefully stop Thanos. And so our heroes had to go to Titanos. And the reason why, because Thanos went there to get away from the Earth as the Earth begins to, well, fall apart and die. And so as soon as our heroes arrive, it does lead into a battle against Thanos. And like I said, this story here gets wrapped up very quickly so that we are able to dive into, of course, the Axe Judgment Day event. But either way, you have Thanos believe that he has won. But he comes to find out there was a failsafe when it came to Uranus' weapon. And that failsafe is to basically take out the person who would try to use the weapon to destroy the Earth. And so when it came to Thanos, because he tried to use the weapon, the failsafe went off. Now, when it came to the failsafe, it was only activated by one person, Droog, the snake, the Loki of the Eternals. And so even though he has been helping Thanos, he's always looking out for himself. He always has an end goal that is going to help him out at the end. And so when it came to Droog, he's all like, listen, you might try to destroy the planet, but I have plans to stop you down the road. And guess what? Here comes one of my plans. And so just like that, the failsafe goes off, the Earth does not die, and Thanos is also captured as well. But after that, you do have the Eternals and the Avengers have a meeting. And when it comes to their meeting, well, this is the Avengers expressing how angry they are at the Eternals because they feel like they should have known everything that was going on with the Earth, the Great Machine, Thanos being here on Earth, and also being the Prime Eternal, and so many other things. But when it came to the Eternals, they worked just like Wakanda, in a way of saying this was a eternal problem, meaning that only Eternals can handle this problem. Not Avengers, not X-Men or Fantastic Four, not regular humans, just the Eternals. And you have them all leave just like that. But now it shows there's some bad blood between the two teams now because of what the Eternals did not do, which is tell the Avengers what was going on. And this leads into the crazy conclusion of the story, because we actually pick up with Droog right now sitting in the throne. He has become the Prime Eternal. And this is very huge because that means all the different plans that he was doing over time led to this moment right here to give him the ability to become the person in charge of the Eternals. But here comes the crazy part though, guys, because now he realized with him being in charge, he has to do something big and powerful to bring all the Eternals together and show that he can be a great leader. But then you have the Great Machine tell him about an island. And with this island, is full of deviants. And apparently the Eternals did not hear about this nice new island that's full of deviants. And so when it came to Drew, he zooms in on the island, and we kind of find out the island that he is talking about is Krakoa, the home of the mutant nation. And it gets even crazier because remember, they also went to Mars recently. And so because of that, you now have Drew say, so there are two islands, one on Earth and one on Mars. Okay, cool. I think it's time for the Eternals to handle that problem. And this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. Later, guys.